Love your yard with a new outdoor space from F&B Landscaping. From a new build to a new project in an existing yard, we listen and give you the yard you want within your budget. Lawns, water features, xeriscaping. We've got the artistic touch and technical know-how to bring the peak of Colorado outdoor living to your home. Reliable, trustworthy. Visit fblandscapes.com to schedule a free consultation today. Well, the weather is going to get a little bit more active here as we head into the start of the weekend in a couple of different ways. On Thursday, we did get a couple gusty type storms down across the southern tier. We thought that would be the case. Our weather pattern being driven by a system off to our west and a little ridge that is off to our south. So you can see where the ridge is centered over New Mexico. And then I'm going to highlight for you the little wave that's going to ride that ridge and head into Wyoming as we start off the weekend. As that approaches, the wind picks up for Saturday. So today, we don't have that wind around. I mean, it'll be breezy over the mountains, but this is a day where, due to the large-scale weather conditions, the fire concerns are not what they were yesterday and not what they are going to be tomorrow. So we'll be in the 80s and 90s across the region as the plains warm back up behind the cool down that we had yesterday. And you can see some southerly breezes over the eastern plains here, but you know, over the mountains we're up around 20 miles per hour at best, I think, as we head into the afternoon. And then speaking of the afternoon, where we can get a couple of thunderstorms, we will get some downburst wind with them because they're going to be the type that have pretty high bases. Some of the rain's going to evaporate on the way down to the ground, and they'll tend to produce just cool pockets of air that rush down to the surface and then spread out in all directions. And there's a couple areas where those are more likely today. So you see the clouds building over the mountains as we head into the early afternoon. And while we may catch something in the Pikes Peak region, it's just that storms are more likely today, I think, south of Highway 50. And you can see that here as we head into the afternoon. And they tend to go up and collapse, which is part of our climatology here when you get a day like today. Now we'll watch the far eastern plains where there's more low-level moisture today, because as we head into tonight and some of those storms that are coming off of the Raton Mesa, maybe off of the Palmer Divide, interact with that low-level moisture that starts moving back toward the hills, some of the storms may intensify a little bit. We'll keep an eye on the far eastern counties here as we head through the evening. It's possible one of them produces some wind gusts around 60 miles per hour and maybe some hail around an inch and a quarter in diameter. I would say that's mainly to the north of Kiowa County, up closer to I-70, but it's something that we'll watch here as we head through the evening. Early on Saturday, a quiet start to the day. But that changes pretty quick as drier air and warmer air try to move off of the mountains. So we're back into the 80s for the mountain valleys, 80s for the mountains. If you get up above about 9,500 feet, we'll be in the 70s tomorrow. You see 100s showing up over the plains. And there's a fire weather watch that is up for the mountains, the interstate, and then out toward Highway 71, toward Kim and areas off to the west. And here's the wrestle on Saturday, and what we still are working on figuring out. Where is the edge of low-level moisture versus the drier desert air coming over the mountains? It will be gustier with the desert air on Saturday. I think over the mountains, some gusts to around 45. But notice here as we hit the afternoon, we're picking up more thunderstorm wind fields where you see those stars out over the plains than a sort of widespread, large-scale southwest wind, even as we head into the late part of the day, because we're getting outflow boundaries that push back toward the hills. And so watch what happens with the low-level moisture, and models are inching a little bit farther west with it, because as we head into the late morning, we're holding on to some pretty high dew points. This model is usually on the drier side of things when it comes to the dew point, and is usually more aggressive with mixing the drier air eastward. So the fact that it's not doing it and the other ones are trending in this direction is something to pay attention to. I still think severe storms are just east of the Front Range tomorrow, maybe up toward Denver. We catch some on the northeast side of the Mile High City. We'll watch this, but you get, 30 minutes, 40 minutes east of the interstate, and we could see some severe storms that are kind of developing, and everything's certainly strengthening as they move off to the east on Saturday. So here's how things will play out. Clouds will build up over the mountains. We have that built-in instability like we do every day over the high country. Then we hit the afternoon and here comes some storms. And you see, even in the early part of the afternoon, while we maybe try to develop some over Pikes Peak, which is certainly a possibility, there's just more of them and they're stronger the farther east you go. I do think the Raton Mesa and the Palmer Divide play a role tomorrow to kind of be some triggers and focus for thunderstorms to develop. So it might be a little bit quieter along the Arkansas River Valley than will be to the north and to the south. But notice here how storms are kind of increasing in coverage and intensity on the large scale as they move off to the east. At 4 o'clock, this version of Skycast does pick up on two outflow boundaries that combine and develop a thunderstorm in northeast Pueblo County. I can't guarantee that that will happen there at that time, but that idea is right and something to watch as we move into the afternoon, but certainly the focus for storms farther off to the east. Now, when you look at the severe weather risk again for tomorrow, there's a couple of things I want to point out. Any storms in the southern part of the state would have more of a sort of downburst wind risk compared to storms that are a little bit farther to the north where there's large hail and maybe a tornado possible. So there's a lot to talk about. I'll do a separate forecast about that here if you're into the details on Saturday, if you have plans or if you just want to know. Sunday, we're a little bit cooler east of the mountains and a couple degrees cooler over the high country as well. Still pretty toasty, though, just not as hot as what we're going to have across the area on Saturday. And there may be some low clouds here during the mornings with the low-level moisture that we've got over the plains. Might have some of those on Sunday. We'll burn those off, cook up some clouds over the mountains here as we head into the early afternoon. And we'll watch our eastern counties on Sunday, especially north of Highway 50, where it's another day where we could catch a strong storm that may produce some gusty wind and maybe some hail around an inch in diameter up across I-70. So, like I said, getting a little bit busier here over the next couple days.